Okay, well, obviously we had our base introduction and I didn't want to do it then, but I'll do it now. I cover a lot of stuff from video editing, special effects to social media, search engine optimization. I created obviously these as a basic framework. Aggie and Jesse have had some very detailed conversations with me, so they know that I'm good at going off topic. So feel free to drag me back in. And if you feel like I've missed something important, you both know more about me than anyone else in the room now, bring me in. Now, HD DVD revived, 8K flicks, CKDS radio. Basically, I've been doing media editing since I left school. I was born in a town where the BBC studios and Elstree Film Studios were, which is where Star Wars was made. And I kind of fell into my first job editing there. I started the radio station, which is why I've got the equipment that I'm doing the podcast with the guys with, simply because I purchased a magazine, saw an article talking about doing online radio, and I set one up. We ran it for about a decade, became one of the most listened to online stations in the world at the time, until the parent company that handled our license actually went bankrupt. But we are bringing it all back, initially in the form of podcast storytelling, and then eventually I'm going to restore the live shows. I do a lot of video remastering work. It is what I spend probably about 60% of my time doing these days. Now, there's a lot of this going on because of the advent of AI. You have things like Topaz Video AI, Gigapixel, etc., that work using AI to upscale. Now, I've been doing this since 2014 with films that are as old as 1915. We don't simply rely on the AI element because the AI element makes a lot of mistakes. This particular one is up here because I've spoken to both of them about it. This is a Christmas Without Snow. That is a frame taken off the video cassette because this was originally filmed onto a video cassette. It wasn't even just transferred to it. There is no master film. Using Photoshop frame upscaling, we've taken it from that to that. This has taken most of the year to get most of this video done. And as I said to Jesse earlier, I actually had a look, and there are some things I'm still not happy with. If you throw this film into AI and let it do the job, it does not come out like that. So fortunately, despite what's available, this is not damaging my business too much. What did damage the business was COVID. We used to rely on DVD sales, HD DVD sales, because that's how we entered the market. HD DVD had lost the war to Blu-ray, nobody was making the films anymore. So I got hold of public domain titles, remastered them into high definition, and sold them to people. 20 million people had bought HD DVD players, and no one was making films anymore. So that was our launch strategy. During COVID, a problem occurred that parcels weren't arriving to customers, they were claiming the money back, and it almost collapsed the business in on itself. So we started working on the 8K streaming system, 8K Flicks, which we're planning to get launched properly by January of this coming year, where we're taking a lot of that stuff and taking films like this all the way up to 8K. We've managed to get a codec running where we can get 8K into 7 megs a second. For the technically minded, that is really, really small. That's beating YouTube's 2K bandwidth. It is beating Netflix's 1080p. A good portion of that is because we can't afford Netflix bandwidth. So I had to spend a lot of time working on codecs. So that's kind of the background in video restoration. There is also editing and special effects, which again, I'm just trying to get through this all very quickly because my main topic is supposed to be SEO, I think. It's what I said it was going to be anyway. Again, a lot of this became quite busy during COVID. This gentleman up here was in England at the time and needed something spliced into a video that was being compiled over in Thailand. He shot on his mobile phone, so then I had to rotoscope it to create a fictional green screen so the actual green screen work could then be done. The entire set down here and here were done using Blender and animated myself here in Brno. Obviously, that's all I can say on these topics because there's not really much that matters, I don't think. I want to get out of this territory because I don't know how much of any of it really applies to you guys. I'm just trying to touch base. And I'm sure I mentioned, I'm not great at looking into a face. One of the reasons that CKDS Radio was such a big part of how I did things and why the podcast works so well is because I don't have to look at anyone. So forgive me.
But you're talking to thousands of people, and now you're only talking
there's a real psychological element to it,
no,
I will be honest.
I know, I talked to people on Discord, like 6,000 people.
Yeah.
And then I was up here, and I was like,
Yeah, and I've created these to create a framework. These guys have both sat and they've seen me talk non-stop about these various topics. But the moment I get up here, if I'm not bouncing, then I get lost and various levels of anxiety sort of kick in.
You're doing great.
Thank you. Don't reinforce me. I'm terrible with that too. Right, so a lot of the projects I've done have been a matter of circumstance. They were because I was somewhere, something wasn't working the way I wanted to, and it agitated me. The entire framework of my businesses live inside the group we created called PC Guys, which I founded with Andrew almost 20 years ago now. Our telecom network rolled out simply because my internet kept coming down and I was arguing with the telephone company who insisted there was no way to prevent these issues. They also insisted there was no way to even tell me what was causing them. So I spent some time, I partnered with a company and invested, and we rolled out some fibre optic lines and a data centre in the UK. And ultimately that has been going ever since. PC Guys does everything from SEO to domestic retail to telecoms communications. We've served over 20,000 people since we launched. And if you check us out on things like eBay and Amazon and eBid for our domestic front, we have a 100% positive feedback across the board. Every day I wake up and I log on and I sort of squint waiting for someone to have left a negative. As an anxious person, which, you know, I'm hiding well, I am forever expecting there to be something that sort of knocks something out on the bottom. And I don't think that's necessarily unique to me. I think anyone running a business at any point, if they care about what they're doing anyway, is anxious about what can go wrong. And even this right now, having this presentation with you, the anxiety comes down to, I care what you think about me. I care what you think about my project. I care about my project. If I walk into a room full of strangers and I sit down and talk one-on-one to a person, I find that I've got a degree of confidence that is unwavering. Because in that situation, I can give somebody 100% of my attention. And if that person walks away feeling a negative experience about me, it's only one lost experience. So it's different, I guess. So yeah, I think the anxiety itself has always worked in my favor for the business, because the fact that I'm always looking for the mistake has allowed me to generally prevent it. Moving on to something I'm a little bit more confident about. Back roughly 15 years ago, Nick and I were working in the Netherlands, and we identified that Google seemed to know what we wanted before we wanted it. As time's gone by, I think that's pretty common for everyone to know how aggressively social media and search engines spy on you and keep data. So we started this little project, the Snipe project, which does lean into the SEO, I will get there. The idea was that we felt that search and social did not need to be algorithmic. The entire premise is, we discussed in the podcast earlier, it's about being able to gouge the most money out of somebody, not being able to provide the best results. The data they store means that they use immense data centers and prices of advertising goes up, and you are basically never alone. Every phone in this room, you've probably got an audible assistant on it that, even though it's not supposed to be listening to us, is listening to us. Because otherwise you wouldn't be able to say, okay, Google. The fact that that works shows you the mic is always on. So we started work initially on Snipe Search itself, which was designed to correlate from other search engines originally, just pull in data via APIs and adjust the results, masking your original location, your original information, so that none of it could use things to sell you later. We also considered that by not storing all of this excess data, we saved money because we don't need storage space for your personal data. We don't need to waste time making and dropping cookies. This was originally built and ran for 10 years on a single blade server under my staircase compared to the infrastructure Google uses. And there's something I left off of this because I thought I was going to spend more time on the other slides, but my confidence didn't come till now. And that is, we had launched this for less than a year, and a website called What's New on the Web picked us up, and they did us head-to-head against Google for search results and found that we were beating them on a little blade under my stairs. And one that we bought in an IT auction, we spent less than £100. It was just junk hardware. Now these days we actually have multiple instances of snipe because we have to. A lot of it involves running our own index, specifically because Nick moved out into Asia. A lot of his client base is in China and places that most of these Western APIs can't reach. You can't get to Google or Bing or anything from out there. So pulling results for them became unviable. We had to index ourselves. So now we have to have an actually powerful server, but again, we are still only using one. We then took the same premise and applied it to what was happening on social media with Facebook and Twitter. Everything they were doing was designed to be able to sell more ads. And I was finding, I'm sure those of you who have done social media marketing, you can do everything right. And you might see a lot of likes on a post or repost or even comments. But most of those things actually turn out just to be bots because the algorithm pushed it in a direction the bot was living and Facebook wanted its click pay. The amount of transactions you get is absolutely terrible. As I was discussing with you, we found we were getting more of a 4% conversion on physically printed leaflets going through people's doors, which was more than 100 times the performance we were getting on social media. When we put this together, again, we decided that we would never utilize somebody's personal information in any way other than what they directly consented. When somebody places a targeted ad on here, it's targeted based on gender, age, page you follow, stuff that you chose to let them use. Most of our network doesn't even allow that. These sides ads that we have literally will only show you things that are to do with the page you're on, nothing to do with your personal profile. This again led to us being able to save so many resources that this is stored on a server that, as I said to Jesse, I've actually got to move it off of the server now, which I'm terrified about. The server this was on was costing us $27 a month, and it held 10 million people because we weren't storing erroneous junk. We also, because we don't target people with algorithm, and again, this will lead into how the SEO goes, for the record. Because we don't target people with algorithm, we have no hate arguments. None. There's no Republicans versus the liberals. There's no left versus right. There's no LGBTQ communities arguing with each other. 10 million people are not fighting. Because we don't care if you engage, because it doesn't make us money to force you to engage. So you follow something you like, you get the thing you like. And while people say that creates an echo chamber, what we have created in social media now has created something worse than an echo chamber. People are so busy trying to have the loudest voice that their voices are becoming catastrophically aggressive. And we're hoping to continue to dial that down with some of the other projects we run alongside it. It's also worth noting that a lot of businesses are falling into this issue where they are trying to dive into a political marketing campaign. If we align ourselves with this person, then that person will definitely buy. Yeah, if we align with this, then they'll definitely buy. You see American businesses taking up positions of hard left or hard right because they know the opposition might boycott. But because of the boycott, this side's going to buy more, even though they wouldn't before. It's another one of those bubbles that's going to burst. So we try and encourage people when we're talking to them about doing their marketing to look more at how we run these projects and align yourself more with your product than treating your customer like one. So far, 2014, 11 years, this has been working for us. And since the other platforms have been getting worse, we've seen immense growth, which is why I have to try and move it to bigger servers. We have, obviously, on these platforms got integrated marketing things. It's made it easier for us to be able to push our own products, obviously. There is an advantage to us financially that if we have something new, we own the ad space. It saves money. Right, now for what is supposed to be the core, I guess. I do a lot in the world of SEO and search engine marketing. Most of my main retainer contracts are around these. Most of the other stuff I do is, as I say, I ran into a wall or I have a hobby that I enjoyed and dove into in business. SEO I'm sadly just good at, and it's dull a lot of the time. But I've been doing a lot of it specifically this week, again, because of the migration with Snipe. I've been trying to find a way to market some of our other projects to get people more interested in those for a week, just in case I knock the entire network down moving it. I accidentally discovered that I could get myself onto ChatGPT, Gemini, Google in less than a week. This came down to it using one of my projects to verify one of my projects. It looked in on itself. We built a system called Romy. Romy was designed to work like Alexa of old. Did any of you use Alexa back in the day? No? All right. Alexa used to install a little badge on your website, and then when people landed, it would measure the hit. That's what it was. It was a glorified hit counter. But from a webmaster's perspective, you could use it to work out where in the world that hit came from. It was good enough data for time, place, and everything to be able to manipulate your website. It's not the in-depth stuff you have now with Google Analytics. It requires less spying. It's just where did the pixel load. Alexa was a good system, but it went because people wanted the more intrusive ones. We used it, we liked it, so we wanted to build something similar. We built Romy. Romy, we wanted to give a little bit more of an edge, because why would you use it? Google Analytics are out there. Loads of people are used to the spying. Why bother? So Romy came with a security badge. It would scan your website every 30 days for viruses, spyware, check to see if you're on any spam list, and it does all that for free. Because for me, measuring the data helps. For you, having a badge that says you're safe helps, and a mutual relationship occurs. Romy is in its very early stages, to the point where I've basically only installed it on a bunch of our websites to test that Romy works. But I was working on an actual project, and I asked it to analyze the security rating of the project I was working on. The whole point of this was to get a list of places that would give me a feedback. What I didn't expect ChatGPT to do was hook into Romy's API. This wasn't my ChatGPT, so this shouldn't have known anything about what I was doing. So I asked it about the site, and it said, traffic says on Romy says it's clean, it was last scanned on this date, etc. I said, what made you use Romy? And it's Romy's used it for the top result for searching for internet security. I had coded it in such an accessible way that it had picked up immediately by Google, ChatGPT, and Claude. They'd all picked it up almost instantly, which then meant that anything I added to Romy, they were instantly able to find on Romy, which gave it a social signal that boosted its position on search engines. Now, obviously, this isn't everyone go out and add a Romy badge to your site because you'll get better Google ratings. What I went out and tested that this works in other environments. If you leave yourself an AI breadcrumb, you write a blog post like you would have if you were doing SEO 10, 15 years ago, and you put it on something that is accessible. If a site's protected by Cloudflare, these things won't be able to crawl it. But if you build something the old way, you write an article about your project. I used Medium as a test the other day, and it took 14 hours for Gemini to have the data from the article I'd released. So AI breadcrumbs are a great way of getting indexed. You want to minimize how much AI tangible material is on your actual website, because although everyone's saying AI first, AI forward, as I've discussed, if Google crawls enough data to be able to give the complete answer without a click, then no one's going to come to you for SEO because they got the SEO answer that was crawled off your page and fed out by Google. So it's about leaving a strong enough breadcrumb that it says, I found this information and it's about this website, to make the person go to the website. It's not about giving them the actual answer. There are ways to manipulate this further, as me and Jesse discussed in detail on the way here, but I am on a time constraint.
So like a blog post is the same, or
Yep. We used in my test so far, I've used Blogspot, I've used Tumblr, I have used Medium as test environments, and they all work fairly well. Blogspot, I think Gemini had some trouble crawling. But essentially, if you want to write it as a blog, if you want to write it as an article, it doesn't matter. What it comes down to is your audience is what matters. So I posted similar things to all three of those to see which ones got picked up. I used Claude to rewrite them. So I said, I want this one to be an article, this one to be a blog, and this one to be an in-depth guide. And I posted them in relative places. It's also very important. AI generation is very popular, but don't just generate it. Write as much of it as you can, then ask it to rewrite and to fill in gaps. Because AI slop is going to get generally just pulled out of the cycle. And it's quite hard because we are currently in a cycle of people using AI to generate AI to generate AI. And I am sort of telling you to give things to the AI. But if you give it something that was completely AI generated, it's actually not going to be able to generate anything good for your search results. Everything is about how you manage what you're putting out there. And a lot of it is, as I say, legacy article rewriting strategies. We used to have a period of time where we would write articles and pump them out into the world in the hope that it would give us leads. Now, one of the big problems is people would go to eZines and they'd post the same article 100 times, which actually is detrimental. You need to be able to rewrite. Use the legacy strategy, but use AI to help you create 20 different unique articles. It takes time, and make sure you read every damn thing it spits out, because it will make mistakes. As I said to Jesse earlier on, if I wasn't reading the work I was doing, I was working specifically on creating a gateway page. And it correctly did 30, 40 prompts in a row, but the last prompt just before he walked in, and that's an opportune time for me to not notice, it messed up the output. And if I'd posted that, it would have damaged all of my work. So read every single word it spits out. Don't trust it. On-page optimization. People look at this as a thing of the past, especially if you work with WordPress, for example. WordPress doesn't even have an area for meta tags because it's considered old. This is nonsense. Google does not take much weight into meta tags anymore. There are over 1,000 other search engines out there. And I say this, I test us against them. Most of them are still using it. Now, Google is most of the West search, and we all know it is. But do you need most of the West? Like, you're doing your retreat, your women's retreat. How many people do you need to come?
8 to 10.
You need 10 people. So the 4 billion people searching Google, that's more than you need. But if you optimize in a way that targets all of those little engines, even if you're on one of the Yassi cloud systems, which is an independent network of systems, there's only a couple of million users there. But if you're perfectly optimized to be at the top of that engine, you're probably going to find 10 people. Everyone focuses very hard on Google and a little bit more into Bing now. I've had it with clients. I had to certify in Bing last year because the CEO wanted Bing optimization. Yeah, I can't see that being long-term business. But if you forget the legacy, you lose all of the meta search engines, which are not most of the traffic, but most of us don't need most of the traffic, which is entirely, when I wrote my book, it was about that. And yeah, go on.
Sorry, just because we're in Czech Republic and I know that a lot of people here use Seznam.
Seznam, yeah.
What's your experience with optimizing for Seznam?
Seznam, it is somewhere between the old legacy and the modern Bing. So the strategies I use here do work on Seznam, ultimately. Some of the things that I do are not necessary for Seznam. The whole thing is if you were to follow what I say from beginning to end, you would overshoot any engine. You'll overshoot Google, you'll overshoot Bing, Seznam, DuckDuckGo, you will overshoot them. The aim is that instead of you trying to beat page one of a specific engine, you go from beginning to end to have top optimization for all of them and then see what happens. When I was writing this, I was planning to write an SEO, search engine marketing, social media marketing book. And this ended up being hundreds of pages, so I've had to break it into 3 separate ones. There is a lot to cover if you really want to cover everything. There's a lot of guides out there that tell you the old way of doing things. So look at them as well as the new ways. Be careful, as I said to Jesse earlier, whether or not the system is considered white hat or black hat. Because if it's black hat and they catch you using black hat, you're going to end up off of Google completely. You don't want that.
What do you mean black hat?
Okay. So an example of black hat is I can make it appear as if a website has existed longer than it has. This will give it a good age rating on Google and will raise its stakes. If I did that for 10,000 clients, that would immediately raise some alarm bells. How did Google miss 10,000 sites that are this old? They would then blacklist all of the sites and anyone who showed a similar pattern. One of the old famous black hat systems was essentially link building. Inbound links lean into Google's PageRank system. Now, back when it started, it really only counted the number of links. So people would just post garbage links all over the internet, which is still something a lot of people try and do. When you go on a blog, you might see in the random comments or even on somebody's Facebook page, check out my supplement or some nonsense. And the whole point is just to get one backlink. But if Google spots that you're using a black hat link building technique, it is going to blacklist the destination. This is problematic because it can be used in almost like a guerrilla warfare against your opponent company. You can pay somebody to post loads of links to your opponent's website and they can end up blacklisted. I'm not trying to give you people ideas. It is a lot of work to undo that. So you need to be careful when you are looking at your SEO that you're not doing anything that falls into black hat categories. If you're doing something in WordPress, there are plugins that allow you to put back in meta tags and things. You can put the old systems back in, and I recommend it because you don't know what you're missing when you're missing 13% of the internet search engines. This is essentially what I'm talking to about legacy SEO and on-page optimization. Off-page optimization, like I say, link building, but link building in the way that you are writing a meaningful article or meaningful blog post, posting it in a known location like Blogspot, like Medium, so that you can generate backlinks. It needs to be useful. Same as when you're posting on Reddit, it has to be useful. It can't read like an advert. You want to write somebody a user guide from the perspective of Aggie with your essential herbs. You would head yourself over to Reddit and you would look for people who are saying, I'm suffering with headaches a lot. And then you could list on there, I've got 10 things that will help. 9 of them would be things from meditation, drinking plenty of water, getting more exercise. And 1 of them would be your product, buried somewhere in the middle. That gets you your backlink. The person potentially reads it, you may even pick up the sale, as long as it doesn't look like a sales pitch. This is so long-winded, it takes up so much of my time when I'm doing it for a customer.
And you can get destroyed on Reddit.
You really do have to be careful about how you do it. You have to be very, very cautious. It takes time and effort. APR, who are one of my prime social media companies I promote for. They're a manufacturing company over in Asia. I've got them over 100,000 followers on various social media networks. but it's all done manually. The only place I use AI, I've stayed here using AI as an assistant, not a replacement. If you noticed earlier, I don't know if any of you did, in the list of formats that we distribute in, there was a typo. And that I've got shaky hands and I'm dyslexic, so I didn't spot it. Now, if I'd used AI to help me with this, I may not have had it. Type everything, have it assist you. And remember to give it tone. When you're asking AI to rewrite something, tell it who you are. Write a paragraph about yourself the way we introduced ourselves. Because if it doesn't know who you are, it's going to be very rigid. And you want consistency with your brand. Even if you're writing a blog, even if you're writing an article, you want brand consistency. It looks like you always talk this way. You just adapt slightly to the audience. And it's really good for helping with stuff like that, especially if you're like me and you struggle. You have no idea how long it takes to write a book when you're dyslexic. It was consuming. There's a lot of keyword planning, as I say, back to the meta tags. It's an old problem for many of you who did SEO 10 years ago, is trying to get the ratio exactly right. And it moves because, again, every time Google release a new white paper, the entire algorithm changes. Sometimes you want 3% of your article, sometimes 10, sometimes 15. Find yourself a middle ground. Aim for what Google wanted from you in 2016, and that will work on most search engines. Never mind if it works on them. Not unless you're trying to go big and global, it doesn't matter. So I think that's most of what I would cover in SEO, although, I'll take some questions. So I got confident when I got into the area I normally talk about. But is there anything that any of you want to know that I missed? Silence.
Just, I would like to mention, it's not a question, when I do my marketing of my events, I have no issue to do anything in English, in Russian, and even in German. But with Czech language, I always have issues to find the right platform, the keywords. So it's a really specific problem here in Czech Republic.
It can be, and I imagine that's why you brought up Seznam.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very loyal.
Yeah, if you... It comes down to that if you want to be able to market, you need to know that you've written your articles well in the language. Anytime I've had to do anything that I've released into Czech, again, I've had the AI read it, and then I've sent it to a native speaker to have it double-checked. It's the only way you can do it. Obviously, AI will translate it, and it'll be very formal. And even though, as a business, you want to come across as sensible, you don't want to come across as too formal. You want to slip the language a little bit, make it look more natural. You need to find very specific Czech places to post, essentially. I don't know much of their forum networks, but ultimately you do want to find some Czech forums and engage specifically on them and become a name.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It's not working here like this. And so I've contacted about concerts with them, organizing and contacted German press, and the English-speaking media, and also some Russian groups, and they were able to provide me some platform for marketing, for promotion. But with Czech media, it's not working, especially in Brno, because you need to be local, you need to have networks and connections to be a part of this close community. So I have some success in this. However, just if you
The broader Czech Republic.
want something in Czech Republic, it will be more complicated than in other languages.
I don't doubt it. They are a smaller audience. It's a specific language.
But because of the sort of collaboration between platforms, because they're really close.
And you found that you've had no weight using Facebook groups and forums or even threads on Reddit that are for Czech-orientated groups.
Facebook groups are not working much.
You're not finding any...
No, but some hints which Facebook is providing by default, like events that can be interesting for you, it works. But I can't influence this algorithm. It's just choosing the events based on your interest.
The problem, ultimately, as established earlier, with influencing Facebook's algorithm is you can influence it. It just needs money. It is all about money. There are,
Still in Czech Republic, television is working. Because
yeah,
it's
you see,
internet
same as printed leaflets.
and
It's,
radio as well.
yeah, it's about reaching people the old way.
What could work as well is maybe connecting some younger people to do on their channels like Instagram and TikTok about your event.
But they are really like have the same mentality already when they're young.
I did some work.
With universities, it's really hard because someone, some adult will tell them that it's not worth trying. So they are influenced a lot by this mentality as well.
I,
But equally sometimes. Yeah.
I've worked with influencers before, and it worked really well for another company that was we sold the company, but it was called Curiosity, and it was like subscription business for kids, and it like we hired some band that's really well known here, Lollipops I think they're called, and it was 10,000, but it was totally worth it. Because it opened it on the channel. And it depends on the product.
Yeah, it depends on the product, and my product is multicultural.
Yeah.
A lot of people are allergic to this word. You know? So it's
that's a fair problem. That being said, though, from his perspective, have you looked on Cameo?
What?
Cameo.
Cameo.
We're all familiar with Cameo. Cameo is a website where you can hire actors and influencers to promote your product. They can make videos for you, so you could get a famous Czech celebrity to endorse your product and use that video. Cameo, I mean, I nearly...
With Kate?
Pardon?
Kate, like...
C, as in a guest performance. Like I was looking at hiring Brent Spinner from Star Trek to do a promotion, just because I'm a nerd, essentially. That's why I picked him. I thought it'd be quite cool to have Lieutenant Commander Data enforce one of our data projects. Cameo, if you're looking for, say, TikTok influencers in the Czech Republic, Cameo is probably the place to go, and it's not a particularly high budget. Every video they make for you has got a time limit on it. So if you hire a TikTok influencer, you pay, I don't know, 5,000 crowns if they're not actually a TV celebrity, you'll get 21 days of license. You can normally pay them a fee to put it on their own TikTok channel, but for that 21 day period, you can put it on Facebook, you can pay for it to be boosted somewhere else. I actually, I did some video work for a local shop here that they put on their Instagram, and it generated them traffic. So you can't necessarily ask around in the same way you can other things, but there's definitely other avenues where you can get somebody to back, push, endorse. I have done some promotion in the Czech Republic, again, primarily via Reddit. Reddit has been painfully quite good in every area, which I avoided for almost a decade, because it is known to be toxic. If you get it wrong, you are going to feel the wrath of the other users. And there was a learning curve, and it was complex, and it is fairly multicultural until it's not, until you run into a group of people who don't want somebody foreign on their thread. And it happens. You have to approach it with thick skin, essentially. I've picked up some sales on there. As far as social media marketing goes, of the big ones, the ones I don't own, it's probably one of the best performings, because you can get traction without spending. The way that Karma works beats out the way a conventional targeted algorithm does. And again, for this group, you're typically looking to target people here without spending a lot of money. And as you've rightly noted.
And also from my point of view, from my experience, there is a huge amount of people in Czech Republic who are avoiding social media. So I have a good experience with posters on the streets. And let's say one poster for 1 month, even not one, 3 posters for 1 month, it's 1,500. and it's worth trying because it can be in the center of the city. And before I was placing some events, but I have some risky idea to promote multicultural services in the center of Brno. We will see, but it will be after elections, I believe.
Yeah.
Because now they will be maybe not for a good thing.
I think you're entirely right. What it comes down to is I think the analog media still massively outperforms the search engine. And it's not just for the Czech Republic. I think in general, if you are targeting local, then local print is going to do the best, which is what we were discussing. I worked with a company called The Tried and Trusted back in England, who were a magazine that basically featured businesses that people had reviewed. And businesses paid to be part of the inclusion, and it picked up a huge amount of traction for that business.
I was going to say, we had a really good conversion from putting ads on tram 12 because it goes straight to Kolmarno, the coffee shop. So maybe like the tram.
Yes, but for now it was too expensive for me. I've investigated.
But there's ones that you can put like in the tram, not like even on the screen you can put ads.
Yes, of course.
Not like on the tram.
That might be the future. Multicultural hub.
I've always worked on the premise when I was doing marketing that I started business by a bootstrap. So the high expense stuff, like the buses and trams and stuff, they were generally something I would rule out from the start anyway. Social media was something, as I said at the start, I was doing because it is the thing to do. But I opened with, it is not super effective by any means. Analog will always beat it out. Which is why, again, if you target AI, when you're writing too much, that it can get the entire concept of what you're doing, it's not going to send you a client, it's just going to give them the data. And you don't want it to do that. That's the beauty of the paper on the street, is it can't. And I don't mean to say, and we've discussed this in detail, not to use it, just to be careful about using it. To think about, as you say, posters. The spots above the urinals in bars do bizarrely well. But it depends on what you're marketing and who your audience is. You shouldn't avoid.
Shops, we have some posters for coffee, like, because I'm sitting there for 5 hours. You know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
How much does a tattoo shop set you back?
It's one of my tenants, actually, so she just puts it there for free.
It must be really useful.
I don't even